Biological horror in the Violent Fish universe. The Violent Fish universe moves away from the gem pop aesthetic to delve into analog horror and alien biology. In this context, the gems are highly specialized biological tools, each designed or adapted for a specific function within an interstellar empire that has even consumed its own homeworld. The primordial entities, the diamonds. At the pinnacle of this hierarchy stand the diamonds, primordial beings who were not created but emerged as the dominant life forms of a now vanished planet. White Diamond, solitary intelligence, and the religion of the stars. White Diamond was the first of her kind, emerging on a lush planet teeming with diverse animal life. For thousands of years, she was the sole member of her species, which forced her to develop an intelligence based purely on the observation of her surroundings and celestial patterns. This extreme solitude gave rise to a personal religion based on the movement of the stars, a faith she would later impose upon her entire empire as an absolute truth. White's deepest curiosity is her fear of mortality. Despite her power, time has taken its toll on her biological form. Hundreds of thousands of years of aging have left marks that she jealously hides beneath her robes. To project an image of unchanging perfection, she uses gems from beings she herself has executed as adornments on her garments, creating a macabre contrast between the purity of her white clothing and the brilliance of her victim's remains. Blue Diamond, the sadism of the oceanic force. Emerging from the oceans of White's planet thousands of years later, Blue Diamond was raised by White as her protege. Initially unable to communicate through speech, the two developed a unique language that cemented their emotional bond. Blue is physically the most powerful of the diamonds, though her intellect, while superior to that of humans, does not reach the abstract depth of White's. In this universe, Blue Diamond is a ruthless dictator with a sick, sadistic infatuation for harming inferior life forms. She commands the Empire's troops, using her physical strength and cruelty to subjugate resistant planets. Her court consists of gems chosen for their brute strength or aesthetic beauty, reflecting her obsession with domination and the display of power. Yellow Diamond, the silent technologist. Yellow Diamond emerged from the forests of the original planet. Unlike her sisters, Yellow Diamond lacks vocal cords, which let her develop a complex language of clicks and squeaks. This communication system gave rise to much of the linguistic culture of the species within the Empire. Her role is that of the technological mastermind. She is responsible for creating communication systems and advanced weaponry. However, her intellect is clouded by volatile rage and a complete lack of ethics. Her experiments with the cluster are not only military but also biological, involving the exposure of gems from various cultures to radiation to observe forced mutations, which often results in agonizing deaths.
The Biological Heresy, Pink Diamond and the Metamorphosis of Rose Quartz. The story of Pink Diamond in Violent Fish _AU is one of the most tragic and complex, as it represents the first attempt by a diamond to break the biological mold of her class. From dictator to Rose Quartz, advanced surgery. Rosa was the first diamond to have a physical gem created through biological engineering by the other diamonds, designed to be a ruthless ruler. However, after centuries of exterminating life on other planets, Rosa began to empathize with her victims as she saw herself reflected in them. To escape her fate, Rosa devised a plan to disappear with the help of her pearl and her senior gems. The transformation into rose quartz required advanced surgery in which her bone structures were filed down and fatty tissue was added to mimic human anatomy. Despite these efforts, the result was a being who inhabited the uncanny valley, too tall to be human, with large, piercing eyes that betrayed her alien origin. Rose quartz operated under the premise that the diamonds were too arrogant to notice the difference between a giant human and one of their own. The war and Stephen's legacy. Rose quartz led a 1,000-year war on Earth after discovering a gem nursery operating without her knowledge. Her relationship with humanity evolved from viewing them as curious pets to recognizing them as emotional and intelligent beings. Stephen's birth was her final biological experiment, an attempt to create new life untethered from the Empire's hatred. Rose died from biological complications during childbirth, a direct consequence of the incompatibility between her altered diamond physiology and the human reproductive process. The crystal gems, survival and adaptation. The remaining members of the crystal gems in this AU have developed adaptations that reflect their original roles and the trauma of their independent existence.
Perla, the low-density navigator. The Perlas were designed by the diamonds as the epitome of beauty and entertainment. In this OU, they were created on a low-gravity planet, which gave them long, slender limbs, but also extremely low bone density. This biological fragility is offset by their intellectual capacity. The Pearl in this OU is an expert in space navigation and military logistics, capable of planning interstellar attacks and designing complex transport systems. Biological parameters. I represents the structural integrity of the skeletal frame. P represents the bone density. S represents the mechanical stress of the environment. Standard environment. In standard Earth gravity, the environmental stress, S, is high. Biological vulnerability. Because the Pearl's bone density, P, is low, her structural integrity, I, is constantly compromised. She is vulnerable to severe physical damage that a warrior-class gem would easily withstand. Intellectual compensation. To compensate for this physical frailty, Pearl has developed a superior intellectual capacity. Interstellar logistics. She is an expert in space navigation and military logistics, capable of planning complex interstellar attacks and engineering advanced transport systems. Emotional and biological loyalty. Her loyalty to Rose was not just emotional but potentially biological, leading her to ignore her own needs for thousands of years. The metabolic anomaly and the clash of biomes. Garnet is the fusion of a ruby and a sapphire, each originating from extreme and incompatible planetary biomes. Component biomes and adaptations. Sapphire. Adapted to freezing temperatures, it possesses a thick layer of fat to protect its internal organs. Ruby. Adapted to volcanic biomes, it possesses scaly skin similar to that of a lizard and claws genetically engineered by the diamonds for combat. The fusion struggle. The initial fusion was a functional disaster. The clash between Sapphire's thermal fat and Ruby's heat-dissipating scales created a being that could barely move or understand itself. Garnet has spent millennia learning to function as a single entity. She avoids diffusing because the process of reintegrating is traumatic and forces her to relearn basic functions. Amethyst, delayed development and wild nature. Amethyst emerged from Earth's nursery 200 years later than expected. Having been alone for 2 centuries, she learned from her animal surroundings, adopting behaviors and movements typical of the local wildlife. She is smaller and weaker than the average quartz gem, but she doesn't know it because she has never seen another of her kind. Fun facts about Amethyst. Communication. Nonverbal. She cannot speak human language, but she understands English thanks to Garnet and Perla's chirps. Behavior. After Rose's death, Amethyst often runs away and is seen by humans, who mistakenly classify her as a wild animal due to her physical characteristics. Connection to Stephen. She considers herself more of a sister to him than a mother, as they are both learning about the world and their own biological limitations at the same time. Analysis of character-specific adaptations. The bioengineering of the rubies. In the universe of Violent Fish _ the rubies are not just soldiers, they are modified biological weapons. Their claws are not natural to their species but were integrated through vigorous trials, led by the diamonds. This suggests a process of artificial selection in which only the most resilient rubies survived the implantation. Their thermoregulation can be modeled using Newton's law of cooling, where K is a thermal conductivity constant that is extremely high in rubies to prevent overheating in their volcanic biomes of origin. The evolutionary vulnerability of pearls. Unlike rubies, pearls were not designed for combat. Their height and slenderness are the result of evolving on low-gravity planets, which gives them an aesthetic advantage over diamonds but a mechanical disadvantage on dense worlds. However, their ability to process space navigation data makes them indispensable. In war, the Pearl did not fight with brute force, but with a level of planning that surpassed the processing capabilities of most gems. Amethyst's communication problem. Amethyst is the character who has suffered the most from isolation. Since she lacks developed vocal cords or programmed language, her brain has adapted her language centers to process visual and written signals. Although she possesses the mental capacity of a human, her developmental delay is due to the lack of a social environment during the first 200 years of her life. Conclusions. The universe of Violent Fish _ is a profound exploration of how physical form dictates function and destiny. Through the lens of horror and speculative evolution, familiar characters are transformed into case studies of biological trauma and evolutionary resilience. For the content creator, the key lies in highlighting these technical details: Perla's low bone density, Amarillo's sensory isolation, and Garnet's metabolic friction.